Hey there, welcome back to another video. This time around, it is my review of the 2018 serial killer thriller, The Clovehitch Killer. Now, this is one of those films that is so frustrating because it's a waste of potential and it feels like a waste of your fucking time. I'm so tired of these films that decide to reinvent the wheel when they don't have to. Sometimes a simple, effective plot with a satisfying ending is ultimately the best decision to make when it comes to writing a story. You don't always have to try so hard to break the mold to the point where you break the film. I don't understand why so many current screenwriters and filmmakers just feel like they have to do this. Like they just have to subvert expectations. They have to do this even to the detriment of the story. It makes sense if it works within the framework. It makes sense if it actually does enhance the overall narrative. But if it ultimately destroys it, then it makes no sense at all to continue to go into that direction. But I think it's just one of those things where these up-and-coming screenwriters and filmmakers, they feel like they are obligated to do that because that's what they were taught to do. And that's what a lot of these critics who give films like this praise tend to look for, is these moments where it subverts expectations and so on. And they tend to, in my opinion, overemphasize when a film does that because it surprised them. They didn't see that coming. And on one hand, I get it, because I like unorthodox storytelling, but I like it when it's effective, when it feels like it belongs in a cohesive narrative. I don't like it when it just feels like it's random and out of place. And that's how I feel about this film. Ultimately, the screenwriter kills his movie. He killed the film because he just couldn't deliver the simple goods. The film is directed by Duncan, and I will say this, I think the direction in this film is hands down the most consistent thing about this movie, other than a couple of the performances by the cast. The direction's really good, even though there are some times where it kind of looks like a TV movie or your typical indie film. I will say this, I think the direction was legitimately great at times, especially when it comes to creating a sense of mood, dread, and atmosphere, building some suspense and tension, as well as some really ambitious camera techniques and camera shots from different angles and different perspectives. The director definitely did showcase his skills with this film, and a big reason why I kept watching, even though the screenplay was just losing me with each act that unfolded, was to see what Duncan had up his sleeve. So, yeah, I would say Duncan Silks did a bang-up job, and I just wish that his direction was ultimately put to use with a better story, with a better film overall. Because the screenplay by Christopher Ford is frustrating beyond belief. Because the first half of this story is excellent. It's amazing. It's some of the best of this genre. It sets up things really well, keeps you interested, keeps you intrigued. It has some surprises and shocks that really do keep you glued to the screen, wanting to see what happens next. It does a good job building characters. I mean, it does a great job setting up the main character, the protagonist, in Tyler. And you get to know what kind of person he is, and you get to see a bit of his family life and see the struggles that he's dealing with. Because in a lot of ways, this film starts out as a coming of age movie. And in some ways, it ultimately is a coming of age film that happens to have a serial killer plot in it. And that is effective. I gotta be honest. It does keep you invested because the writing is really strong when it comes to this first act, especially when it comes to the scenes where Tyler is starting to realize that his father might be the Clovehitch Killer. He's finding these bits of evidence in his father's shed, and he's starting his own investigation. He's working with this local girl to try to figure out this mystery and maybe discover a dark truth about his family, and leads to some really tense scenes where he's underneath the floorboards of the house finding secret passageways. And this film is at its best when Tyler is on edge, thinking that his father is going to get him, like that his father might know that he knows. And that's really when the film works so well, is when it's maintaining this tension and this suspense, despite the fact that you pretty much know already that his father, Don, is a killer. It's pretty much a done deal. But then there's a moment where his father takes Tyler to a camping trip in the middle of the woods. But let's be honest, when it comes to camping trips, where else do people take their families or their friends? It's always in the middle of the woods, unless they're camping somewhere in the mountains. So I guess, could be wrong on that, but I digress. Getting back to the point here. So he takes him to the woods and he tells him, I know that you know. And then he says this bullshit story about how it wasn't him, it was his brother, and he was trying to protect his brother, and that's why he didn't get rid of the evidence. And you're like, okay, all right, the kid's naive, it's his father, I'll give him a mulligan. It makes sense that he would at least fall for it at least once, because he just doesn't want to believe the sinister truth that his father is the Clovehitch Killer. I mean, what kid would? What kid would want to ever believe for 1 second that their father was a serial killer? So that's fine. But then there's a moment with the writing which really is the point where the screenplay just starts to get off the rails. Like, it doesn't go completely off the rails yet, but it's there's like a wheel that's starting to show some sparks and starting to get off track. And this is when Tyler makes a ultimatum to his father. He's like, okay, you've got to take this evidence to the police or you've got to burn it. Why the fuck would he even say you've got to burn it? I don't understand that. I get that, oh, take it to the police, but burn it? Like, what kind of selfish fucking asshole are you? Yeah, burn the evidence that would provide justice for the victims of this killer who has tormented and terrorized this small town, even when he has stopped killing, because the town is still terrified of this guy, that he'll kill again. And you're like, no, you either turn it into the police or you burn it. And what happens? Of course the father agrees with the sentiment to burn it, because why not? Now he doesn't. Now that's not going to implicate him anymore, thanks to his dumbass son. So the son is a selfish asshole at that moment, and then from that point forward, this character stops being a character that you sympathize with, that you root for, that you care about, because he just starts this spiral of selfishness that is just so aggravating. And I don't understand why the writer decided to go that route. Why would you alienate the audience so much? I get a little bit of selfishness because you don't want to be associated with the Clovehitch Killer. You don't want your family to be known as the family whose husband or father was the Clovehitch Killer, and you don't want to be known as the Clovehitch Killer's kids and so on. I get it. I understand why you want to protect your family's legacy, but not to this extent. And so you have that going on, and then in the middle of the second act, the screenwriter decides to completely destroy all of the momentum that he was building up to this point, because then he decides to have all these different sequences that are out of order, that are from a different point of view, looking at other scenes that we already saw in the film. It's interesting, but it's random. It's just randomness. If he had set it up earlier, at least once or twice, where you'd have a couple scenes where you would have something like that going on, that would be one thing. But no, it happens like in the middle of the second act, and it just completely sucks the life out of the movie. Because now there's no momentum. Now you're confused. Now you're thinking it's a dream sequence or something. You're not really knowing what the hell is going on. And then you get to the point where it finally catches up to the current point in the story. And then it starts to pick up a little bit more momentum. But everything is just so scattered now. And everything is just nowhere near the same. And then you get to the ending, and then it just completely, royally fucks everything up anyway. So even that moment of brief salvation, when it comes to this script maintaining the momentum that it had previously, is also thrown out the fucking window and completely tossed down the drain, because the screenwriter decided he wanted to be some brilliant auteur, some genius, and set up things in a way that not only continues to bury the character of Tyler, but also buries his friend, who we have now realized is the daughter of one of the victims of the Clovehitch Killer. So you have the character of Cassie, who is also completely ruined because she goes along with Tyler's bullshit, selfish plan. So what's this plan? Well, Tyler saves this woman who was going to be his father's next victim, saves her. He knocks his father out, takes him to the woods, probably the same camping area that they frequent often, and he kills him and makes it look like it's an accident, like it's a hunting accident. And Cassie goes along with it. Nothing about her character showed that she would have gone along with that so easily, because that provides no solace, no catharsis, no real justice for her mother. It doesn't provide any justice for the victims that she was supposedly so passionate about trying to help, because she's trying to solve this mystery and find out who the Clovehitch Killer is. Nope, all that's thrown out the window, because the screenwriter decided, I'm gonna turn the tables. I'm gonna be M. Night Shyamalan Ding Dong and surprise ya. I'm gonna shock the audience. The only thing shocking is how stupid this writing decision is on your part, Ford. I mean, what the fuck? And by the end of the movie, it ends with a funeral for Don, and the town does not know that he's the Clovehitch Killer. In fact, the town is going to continue to think that the Clovehitch Killer is still around and could kill again because they don't know the truth. The victims get no justice. I mean, if someone who actually was a victim of a real serial killer saw this film, they would feel insulted, and rightfully so. It's honestly kind of disrespectful to make a film that's inspired by the BTK killer and then have it end the way that it does, where the town doesn't know who the real killer is, and pretty much the killer remains alive, remains infamous, and people are still going to check under their beds. People are still going to be terrified of this killer when they don't have to be, because he's dead and he's no longer around. And I get what they were trying to do. They were trying to destroy the archetype of the American dream, the American small town, and the ideals and so on. But there are better ways to go about it. You can do that while also providing a cathartic ending. Just reveal that he's the killer to everybody. Have him face some justice. If you want to kill him, fine, but actually have the investigation come to the conclusion that yes, Don was the Clovehitch Killer. That's it. That's all you fucking needed. But no, we gotta be smart. We gotta be too clever for our own good. Because that's what we were taught in film school. So we gotta really make sure that we shoehorn in some subtext or social commentary or some other bullshit. Even at the expense of characterization and a satisfying ending. But, you know, none of that is important nowadays for a lot of people anyway, right? Isn't it all about the subtext? I mean, look at Ari Aster's filmography. The guy's getting 2 thumbs up, 10 out of 10, getting jerked off by every critic under the sun just because he has subtext in his films. He's an absolute dumpster fire when it comes to writing strong, sympathetic, and likable characters or an engaging, consistent storyline. But, you know, none of that really fucking matters as long as we got that juicy subtext to sink our teeth into. So, yeah, as you can see, not a fan of this film. I was for the first half. I loved it for the first half. The first half was great. And then I was even liking the bits with Cassie and Tyler starting to build a friendship and a connection around trying to figure out whether or not his dad really was the Clovehitch Killer. And then Tyler just turns into a terrible piece of shit. And then the ending is some unsatisfying, stupid, try-hard, pretentious piece of shit. But one thing that is not a piece of shit and not really that bad, honestly, is the performances by the cast. I think that's the other thing, like I mentioned earlier in this video. The direction is consistent in terms of the quality, and so are the performances by the cast. So you've got Charlie Plummer as Tyler Burnside. There were some moments where he was a little too one note or dead inside, but there were enough moments where I felt he showcased enough emotion and enough depth for this character that he made it work half the time. Because once he just started being a selfish prick, he lost me, and that's honestly where the worst bits of his performance wound up happening anyways, when he just became more withdrawn, and it just came across as him just kind of sleepwalking through his lines, to be honest. It's very evident in the last few scenes where he's at the funeral and he's doing a speech about his dad. And speaking of his dad, Dylan McDermott plays Don Burnside, the Clovehitch Killer. And Dylan McDermott in this film is dazzling. He is absolutely spectacular. And it's a damn shame that his performance was stuck in such a below average misfire of a thriller, because he deserved way better. This was one of his best performances of his career. It showcased a range that I think a lot of people didn't think he had. I didn't think he had it in him. I mean, Dylan McDermott was known more as the guy who would be cast as like a heartthrob in films, or he would be a supporting cast guy, or he wasn't really known as an actor who was gonna be on anyone's radar to play a role like this. And he showed that in the future he should be. And I hope he does get more roles like this, because he excelled in this role. He nailed all the different aspects of this character. The family man, you believed it. You believed that he was this pillar of his community, and that he was the type of guy that everyone was looking up to, and everyone wanted to build a connection with, and everyone trusted. And then you also bought him as this sadistic, psychotic deviant and killer. So, yeah, if there was anything to really glean from this film, I would say it really was Dylan McDermott's performance in this film, and Duncan's direction, in terms of like some really genuine, strong highlights that make the film worth watching at least once. And who knows, maybe you might like it more than I did anyway. So, but at the end of the day, if it is a film that you think looks like it might have some potential, please check it out. And even if you're kind of on the fence about it, if you just want to see whether or not Dylan McDermott can showcase a whole new set of acting muscles, then it's another reason why you should check it out. Samantha Mathis is almost completely unrecognizable as the wife, Cindy. And the rest of the cast is fine too, but I would say the only other actor in the cast that really stands out is Madisen Beaty as Cassie. I thought she was really solid. She did a great job as well. Had some good chemistry with Tyler, Charlie Plummer. And there are some other elements that were there. The cinematography by Luke McCubry, the editing by Megan Brooks and Andrew Haas, the score by Matt Veldigan. That's another instance of the film that faltered for me. The score was just forgettable, just generic ambient music that's just there to be mood and nothing else, which I'm getting tired of when it comes to a lot of these films nowadays. You know, you can try a little bit harder with your scores. You don't have to just be nothing but background noise. And it was like 110 minutes, and for the first 50 minutes, 45, 50 minutes or so, it was really compelling, it was really strong, and then it just suffocates itself. It chokes the life out of itself because of the pretentious script. So yeah, I really don't know what else to say about the Clovehitch Killer, except thanks for watching my review, and as always, I'll see you later. See ya.